Looking at the northern stretches of the Indian subcontinent, you find some of the most serene geography on Earth. Deep mountain valleys, turning autumn leaves, and quiet snow-capped peaks. Today, that quiet is entirely gone. Tens of thousands of people are out in the streets, fighting pitched battles against heavily armed riot police through thick clouds of tear gas. The military crackdown has been severe. Over 30 people have been killed. Hundreds more are filling local hospitals with serious injuries, and the Pakistani army has issued strict shoot-on-sight orders to quell the crowds. This unrest centers on a localized economic revolt led by the Joint Awami Action Committee. They are protesting a sudden spike in electricity rates and the removal of decades-old subsidies on wheat and flour, which raises a rather immediate question. Why is the Pakistani military deploying lethal war zone tactics against its own citizens who are simply asking for basic survival resources? To understand the collapse, look at the region structure. This map highlights Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, or POK. Islamabad divides it into two separate administrative zones, a narrow southern strip called Azad Jammu and Kashmir, and a massive northern expanse called Gilgit-Baltistan. For decades, Pakistan maintained a tight, heavily managed status quo across both zones, keeping the local populations relatively quiet and politically subdued. That silence broke when the Joint Awami Action Committee organized local laborers, students, and merchants to demand relief from crushing inflation. The JAA's demands for economic relief highlighted a deeper structural issue. By organizing against the state, they exposed a massive extraction economy that fuels the Pakistani mainland while depleting the region. This region is incredibly rich in natural resources, specifically fast-flowing rivers perfect for generating hydropower. But the people living right next to these dams are living in the dark. The electricity generated here is siphoned off and sent directly into mainland Pakistan. Meanwhile, the locals in POK face rolling blackouts that last for days. And when they do get power, they are charged exorbitant mainland commercial rates. As energy bills spiked, Islamabad compounded the crisis by slashing vital subsidies, making basic staples like wheat completely unaffordable for the working class. The poverty here is systematic. Administrators in a distant capital are actively mining the population for its water and power while providing nothing in return. In a functioning democracy, an exploited population would simply vote out the politicians who are allowing the theft of their resources. Islamabad claims the region is independent, hence the name Azad, or Free Kashmir. This diagram shows their supposedly independent legislative assembly, which consists of exactly 53 seats. The math of this assembly contains a built-in Trojan horse. Of the 53 seats, 12 of them are permanently reserved for migrants. These are people who trace their lineage to the region, but actually live full-time inside mainland Pakistan. Because those voters live in the mainland, Pakistan's ruling parties easily control those 12 seats. Islamabad's central politicians use that guaranteed block to tip the balance of power, reliably installing puppet leaders in POK who will rubber stamp the extraction of water and power. The political design itself is a mathematical trap. The local population is structurally locked out of holding a majority, rendering them powerless to legally change their own economic reality. Faced with crushing economic despair and another round of these rigged elections approaching in June, the Action Committee realized voting was useless and took their demands entirely to the streets. Islamabad responded with pure force. They declared the civilian protesters to be terrorists, arrested the committee leaders, deployed the army, and began opening fire. Shooting citizens over a bread dispute severed the final tie to Islamabad. Protesters began invoking the memory of the 1971 war and shouting that they would rather reunite with India than remain under a military that fires on its own people. This internal collapse has triggered an immediate response across the border. New Delhi sees a severe vulnerability in Pakistan's grip on the region, and they are capitalizing on it. India has formally condemned the upcoming elections in Gilgit-Baltistan as illegal. Diplomatically, they are fiercely reiterating that the entirety of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir is and remains an integral part of India. This unrest also deeply terrifies Beijing. This map illustrates the multi-billion-dollar China-Pakistan economic corridor. That massive trade network threads directly through the narrow valleys of Gilgit-Baltistan. If Pakistan loses control of that territory, China loses its physical access to the Arabian Sea, and the situation is rapidly escalating beyond diplomacy. India is shifting from a defensive border posture to active military readiness, with intelligence pointing to the potential preparation of strategic launch platforms. What began as a local dispute over flour has shattered the illusion of a stable, independent territory. With the facade of POK crumbling, India now has the geopolitical leverage to redraw the map of the subcontinent entirely.